everybody. Welcome to Perpetual Motion. I'm so glad you chose this podcast, and I hope you are prepared to be inspired. This episode features Angela DiMarco, an amazing graphic designer, entrepreneur, and author in sunny New York City. I hope it's sunny now. It's been snowing, but I think it's sunny. I love chatting with overcomers, and this lady is no exception. Today, we're talking about her journey from the lows that preceded her 13 years of sobriety to the courage it took to ditch her six-figure job and become a pure entrepreneur who has founded three companies: the Thirsty Creative Group, Find Uniquely You, and Phenom Publishing. She is also a closet songwriter. I don't know what that means, but we're going to figure it out. I think that's exciting too. As for me, I'm your host, Dr. Mo Anderson. Perpetual Motion is a podcast focused on lifestyle, self-care, personal empowerment, and positive relationships. I interview thought leaders from all over the globe who share tips, tools, and techniques to add immediate value to your personal and professional growth. If that sounds good to you, you're in the right place. Stay tuned, turn up the volume. And if you're a new listener, do me a favor, please hit that subscribe button and leave a rating if you enjoy the content. That's how you'll help this program grow and reach more amazing listeners like you. All right, my friend in the NYC, welcome, Angela.
Hi, Dr. Mo. How are you?
I am excellent. And so glad you're here. One of my former guests, Dana Sardano, introduced her. You guys are business partners. Introduced you. You guys are business partners, and I'm so glad we got connected because your journey is something else, lady.
Oh my goodness. Well, I really appreciate you having me, and I love your smile. I love your content, and I feel honored to be here. So thank you.
All right, let's get into it. I want to tee you up and talk a bit about your background first. You have done so many things in such a big way, and you're still pushing the envelope, as they say. Prior to entrepreneurship, you spent your formative years working at some amazing advertising agencies there in New York City. Can you share with us how you got into advertising?
So when I was in high school, I wanted to be a doctor, like my uncle. I always drew pictures. I always played, but never thought like art was my life. I was going to be a doctor.
Right.
And I went to college, and the bio work was like, the books were this thick and the labs were and I was just like, wait, I can't do this. So I waffled around at University of South Florida, which is where I met Dana. She was my pledge mom in our sorority, Sigma Delta Tau.
Didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, she was. I looked up to her so much. I was referred to as Little Dana because I copied everything she did. And so I tried a bunch of different majors, and one of my last classes was this is like when the kind of the drug problem started too, because I really didn't know. I was waffling around far away, and I took an art class, and I was carrying my portfolio, and I was getting charcoal under my fingernails, and I was like, oh, I love art. And so I came home after 5 semesters, and then I started researching wanting to go to school for art, like, oh, I can make pictures for a living and make money. And so I went to SUNY Farmingdale on Long Island in New York, and I got a degree in visual communications, and I just fell in love with the ad world.
Oh, thank goodness that you landed in the right spot, because that would not have worked at all for you. You know, some people just push on through. They don't recognize this is not for me. I don't just need to change directions a little bit. I need to do a 90-degree or a U-turn.
Oh yeah.
And even that, as a young person, that took a lot. How did your parents take that when that's a big switch. Oh, I don't want to be a doctor now. I want to draw.
There was a lot of stuff going on in my family at the time. We had my uncle and my grandmother died. So my family was all kind of like in their own worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And I had come home, and and I'm not knocking this as a profession, so please nobody like take offense to this, but I was a secretary at my stepdad's accounting firm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was delivering the mail to the partners, and I was answering the phone. Thank you for calling, blah, 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 blah. And just, I just was so unfulfilled. And I needed to do something else. I was like, I have to do something else. Like my voice inside wouldn't let me sit there and answer the phone anymore and deliver mail. So
Understood.
I don't mind doing it. It's just, it was one of those things that would never go to, it didn't speak to my soul. So I just, SUNY Farmingdale was very inexpensive. I lived from home. I worked like I lived home, and nobody seemed to care what I was doing anyway. But I made a career for myself, you know. I remember between junior and senior year, everybody was getting internships, and they were like, yeah, you have to do work for free and pay your dues. And I was like, no, I'm going to go
I
and
know.
I'm going to
And
get
they
a
still
job.
are saying that, and
I
it's still
know.
not true. You should not be working people like that for free. That's wrong.
I know. I got myself a job for $10 an hour at a little design firm in the city on Park Ave South. I mean, I was living the dream as a
Wow.
junior in
Yes, you were.
college. It was awesome. It was awesome. Great company. So yeah, and I love the whole getting into a client, solving problems, and I
Mhm.
got into branding, and I'm a visual person. So I was always on the art side.
Okay. Okay. And I can see all of that, which we're going to talk about later in what you're doing now. I'm wondering, I talked to a lot of women who were, you know, in corporate America, who are in very powerful companies like you've been. Did you have to encounter, was there sexism? Did you feel supported by leadership? Because that's still a conversation we're having today. Was that something you encountered at that time?
I had issues that I don't know if I can relate to being a woman. There were always women who were in higher positions than me that were very respectful, very smart, that I always befriended, just
Nice.
really powerful women. And I think the men being in a creative environment, I think there's less of that,
Hmm.
less boys clubby stuff going on. You know, now I'm dealing with it more, much different in the world that I'm in now. But my issues were, I did have an issue with the boss, Mark Garbarini, when I was
Ooh,
working at
calling him
DiMarco's,
out. Oh,
calling him out.
oh,
Best teacher of my life, because
oh, okay.
no, he hated me, and he made my life hell. After I came back from having a baby, he made
Mhm.
my life hell. But I learned so much. I learned how to stand up for myself. I learned how to speak my truth. Like he was my greatest teacher and the biggest
Okay.
pain in the ass.
Well, did you learn that from him, or did you learn that because you reacted to him and you saw the response? Because was
It
he
was
actually teaching you anything if he was being that horrible, or is it there's something in you rose up because of that adversity?
the latter, the latter.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
I would present an idea and he would throw it across the desk and be like, this
Mm,
is crap. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually really good. But it led me going to talk to other people in leadership,
mhm.
not to complain, but to say, like, tell me how to deal with this. And they taught me how to have the conversations, how to ask for, well, can you elaborate on why it's crap? You know,
Mhm.
like, can you tell me what I could do? And being forced to have those conversations and grab into the heart of the matter. You know, when you call people out on stuff,
Right.
they don't have an answer, because
Right.
it's not really that. So I learned a lot about human nature and my belief in who I was.
Fantastic. And kudos to you for taking the initiative and not just quitting, because that can break your spirit. And sometimes it's even appropriate to leave if it's just particularly abusive, but you found other people to support you. It might not be your direct manager, but you found other people to support you and to help you navigate difficult conversations. You're right. You did learn a lot. That's not a skill that you ever don't need. There are, I just had a difficult conversation with my 6-year-old granddaughter. So you just keep keep having them. She won that one, but I held my own as best I could.
Come on, let me just give you some cookies. Can we win here?
Yes, please, please. It was over tea party, but I guess things have changed since my tea party days. But
That's great.
I learned something too. Just let her have her way. That's what I learned.
That's awesome. She's going places, that one.
Yes, she is. Executive leadership potential. Well, so we've got your background, and it sounds like you just always been able to assess the situation and figure out a way to move forward with strength. But why did you leave then that career path after going through all of that and experiencing success? Why did you leave that to become an entrepreneur?
So that happened early 2000s. I'm going to say it was around 2008, 2007. In 2008, we were going through a recession, right? The whole country was
Yes.
bonkers. And
Big time.
my last corporate job was that summer of 2008. But I had just been physically abused by my ex-husband. And I had a 3-year-old. And so I had to fight for custody. And it was just, I was in a situation where we were now split up and I had a 3-year-old that I had to be around for. So that summer I got laid off from a job because there were just massive layoffs all around.
I remember.
And for some stupid reason, I thought that I could just go out there and like be a freelancer and it would work. But I wound up hooking up with some really, really smart people who were doing the same thing. And we slowly started like getting clients, like one of our fantastic clients, the work we did with Scholastic. So, and then we just like, and a physical therapy company, we did branding for them. And it was just like, it was just enough to keep the lights on. It was enough, like total flexibility to be there for my daughter and navigate that whole situation and going through that. So that led to the birth of Thirsty Creative Group, which was like, all these big agencies were charging everybody a ton of money to try to recoup during the recession. And we came in as this nimble, flexible, we'll build your team.
Agile. Yeah.
Only what you need, and it became like a glorified freelance thing where I'd pull all my freelancers in for different projects. And it was fun, because we were working directly with clients and things like that. So yada, yada, yada. I wound up getting a full-time job because I found chasing money. I didn't want to deal with that anymore. I didn't have any partners. It was just me.
Especially with the little one too, you need some stability in there.
Yeah,
Right.
and health insurance. Like there was good health insurance, and then the whole Obamacare thing changed everything, and then I couldn't afford health insurance anymore. Like it just got crazy. So I wound up getting a full-time job and going in-house as a director of marketing for a manufacturing company. So it was great hours. I had remarried. My daughter was living with me. She's older now, and now I have a baby. So like a life changed. So I just needed that full-time job. So that was kind of like the shift. And then the real shift was when I lost my baby and why I left that job. So.
Okay. Yeah, and we're gonna talk about that loss and Joshua, because you shared that experience openly. I wouldn't pry into something like that, but I know you posted in December 2019 on Facebook, and you talked about it, and so many women have experienced that. So I want to get into that, but before we do, at some point you were kind of self-medicating. And when we spoke before, congratulations. I made a note of it, 13 years sober as of March 9th, and today is March 17th. So I'm a week off, but I did want to tell you that I'm so proud of you. And I know that that's a difficult journey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm wondering was it the high life, the Park Avenue coworker happy hours and work stress that contributed to the I think you were drinking, right?
I was doing everything. I mean,
doing everything.
It was definitely didn't help that we would have like, they would shut the office at 2:00 and line the beers up on the coffee bar. Like it didn't help those things, grabbing 4 beers, going down to the desk. But I started drinking long before. I was drinking as a 9th grader. If my daughter drank as a 9th grader, I'd smack her beside the head. But I was in a situation.
But were your folks aware that you were drinking?
There's a podcast of me on Joe Kozo. So if anybody wants this like it still makes me cringe story, go listen to that one. But okay. I'll just say that like my dad and I partied together. My mom and dad were divorced. So I was drinking very young age, and that was that's how I learned how to fit in and be a part of stuff. So I really had no identity, kind of like that was my go-to. It became self-medication the minute I went to college and my uncle died. Well, it was self-medication before, but I didn't realize, social stuff. But
was this the uncle who's a physician, or is that another uncle?
Yes.
Okay.
He was the reason why I wanted to be a doctor.
Right.
He died at 36 years old. He had an enlarged heart. Yeah, it was like sudden and tragic, and it rocked my world because he was like one of my stable men figures, my male figures. So I basically, up until Maddie, up until I was going through court, I was in court with my ex and my lawyer, and we had to go through a whole psychological analysis because my ex was suing me for custody. And I realized I answered like all these questions on an analysis test, like 850 questions. And I answered so truthfully, because that's who I am, I'm not going to lie. He it turned out that like everything said, you screamed out, you're an alcoholic, you've got issues with alcohol. And I admitted it to the psychologist. I was like, I'm going into AA. I need help. I don't know what to do. And this is true. And that was like the nail in the coffin that sealed the deal that my ex got my daughter, and I became a visiting parent. And I went through that decision sober for the first time in my life. And, but so the journey, the whole first 2 years of being sober is no picnic. It's no picnic. I mean, there was a point when I didn't have something to escape to. I remember laying on the floor and crying on, like trying to dig myself into the floorboards because I just couldn't face myself. I couldn't face the life that I had lived. And, but I did the work. That's really what happens. You do the work. I found the right people. I had great sponsors and great friends. And when I didn't have Maddie, I was going to meetings or talking to meetings or being like just doing, and then figuring out like who I was now as a sober person.
Right. And not blaming everybody else, but dealing with, I've got to move forward. This happened. This impacted me, but how do I move forward with strength and help my daughter? I know you wanted to be a good role model for your kids. And I think, that was very poignant. You just said about being on the floor without, now I don't have something to numb me. I have to think about what has happened to me and how I've reacted to it. And it's really that, from what I understand, and I've talked to several people about recovery, is once you get past that physical, addiction, is really that mental, emotional thing that draws people back sometimes when they relapse. I know you had professionals helping you. Did you have friends or other family members supporting you in this? Because you lost your daughter. You had a lot going on there. That's hard.
I did. And I eventually worked with an amazing therapist, Joe Amato. He lived down the street from where I was living at my mom's house. And he, even in like a terrible snowstorm, I remember hiking down there in my boots because I had no excuse. And he was amazing. He helped me, but it was more that I had to drop everything. I almost had a nervous breakdown. So I lost my like relationships with my clients. Like there was a point in time where I just like had to stop, like everything just had to stop.
Burnout going on.
Yeah. But it's one thing I want to say is that it is all about the inner work. Whether you're numbing with food, with money, with, shopping, with anything, all of those are excuses. And a lot of people, they'll put down the drink and then they'll start eating a lot. Like you go to an AA meeting and you're getting rid of an addiction, but you have coffee and candy and sugar. It's like, it's like, it took me a year to quit smoking. I'm like, because I need something, you still have something. So until you understand how to look at your situations, like the 12 steps, everybody should learn the 12 steps for everything they go through in their life. It's like, oh, I want this cookie, but how am I feeling about this cookie? Am I powerless over this cookie? Or do I just want the cookie?
That's good. I never thought about that. Yeah, I'm familiar with the 12 steps, but I never thought about the broader application of those.
It's so helpful to look at life that way. And that the rooms really are supportive in that, just like getting through this stuff. But one thing I do want to say for anybody that is in the space of looking at that mountain, making the decision to quit, or to change or do whatever you have to do. Being an addict is not a life sentence. And this is contrary to a lot of what people say and do.
Right.
It's contingent on your spiritual condition. So if you are spiritually fit, spiritually sound, you know yourself, you do the work, you ask for the help, you know how to do the resources to get you through things. Like, I don't call myself an addict. I don't call myself an alcoholic. I'm recovered. I'm living a life free from the shackles of that, because I'm living from my heart. And it is possible to just live a life of freedom. You just have to do the work and find the people. Just find the people. That's the main thing.
Right. And that that is some work sometimes as well, because we have certain people that we want to be in that role, and unfortunately they just may not be capable. You
No.
never really know what's going on in somebody else's head and heart. But I've and I say that because I've had that experience, and it's been disappointing, where I wanted support from a particular person and was too young to realize that they were not, it wasn't about me. They were not capable of giving me that support.
Right.
Everybody
Right.
can't do everything. So I
Right.
am so glad you found the right people, and that, a neighbor too, even better. Because
Yeah, yeah. The good thing about like the support groups is the best thing to do is find a stranger, right? Someone who knows nothing, who has no investment in your life, has no barriers. But the most important thing is when you find that person, it's just for the initial, but you
Mhm.
have to find yourself, because you are the only
Mm,
person you can rely on. And
right.
and if you don't rely on anybody else, and AA, there's a saying, don't put your happiness in someone else's pocket.
Mm.
you know so just find the people to help you in the beginning, find the strangers that you can tell all the awful stuff that you've done in your life. I remember you go through this fifth step, and I was sitting with my sponsor in her car, and I was like, oh, because you have to say everything you've done, like you have to go through this list, and I'm like, okay, and then there's this, and she's like, oh, are you kidding me? I did that like tenfold, and you're like, oh, it's not so bad.
Right. It's all relative. They give you perspective.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You alluded to the that you lost a child, and I think the picture behind you has I see the angel's wings when you lean to the side a little bit, as well as your two other children. Share whatever you'd like about that experience and how it impacted you.
Yeah, I'm a total open book about everything, obviously. My husband and I had Christian. We got together. Maddie moved in with us. I got pregnant with Christian, and
Mhm.
we're this happy 4-person family unit. Working at the day job, making good money. Everything is just like copacetic, wonderful in my life. Everything has come to like this beautiful moment, right? All the hard
Right.
work led me to this beautiful space.
Mhm.
I miraculously got pregnant again. It was a little hard to get pregnant with Christian. He's an IVF baby. But then I miraculously get pregnant, and I find out on my birthday. And August 28th, 2018, I find out I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh my God. 2019, sorry. And then I was pregnant. I didn't announce the pregnancy to anybody until I was like 3.5 months. Put it out, little thing out on Facebook, and did the announcement thing. And then on December 3rd, I had a spontaneous miscarriage, is what they call it, or spontaneous abortion is what they call it. But he just slipped out.
Oh,
And he
wow.
was a perfect little baby. There was not the hardest part of the whole thing was leaving the hospital without my baby. Like, it was just, I held him like he was almost cooked enough. He was 18 weeks.
Right.
And it was the hardest day of my life. It was the most tragic, most horrible
I can't
day.
imagine. Yeah.
And then just to come home, I'm going to share a story though. So I come home, Dave and I come home. Dave was amazing through the whole thing. His dad was there with us. And I come home, and I've got Maddie, and we're all just dealing with this as a family. So we took the next day to just the four of us be together, just because life is crazy. I turn on the news, and one of my cousins baby daddies is being arrested for being a child pornographer
What?
on the news. I know, crazy,
Wow.
crazy, crazy.
Had he been around your children?
Yep. Yes. And Maddie always felt a little weird about him, but she's old enough to tell me if there's any issues or whatever. But it was
Mhm.
just like, this
Wow.
happened. And then that was all my family could talk about. Like, I had just lost a child, and everyone was talking about this guy and this whole thing that was going on. And so I was like, it was like surreal. But there was a point when we just went out to dinner, and we go to this place, and there's nobody in this restaurant, just the four of us. So Christian is like 2 years old, just starting to talk. And the waiter is standing at our table. We're so hungry, and we're all like numb. And the waiter's standing at our table, like after we get the food, and we're trying, like, do we talk to him? And Christian just goes, bye. And the waiter's like, oh, my 2-year-old. It's just like, later. It was the most bizarre day of my life. But
Did you all start laughing though? I would have
well,
laughed.
we needed it so badly.
Yes.
If he doesn't talk, and he's like bye. That was awesome.
We're done with you.
So my job was great. They gave me the time I needed.
Oh,
I
good.
did not even think of reaching for a drink at this point in time. It was so painful, but I wanted to honor my baby. Okay.
Mhm.
Long story. That led me onto a spiritual journey. I felt like there was a reason. I had to figure out what the reason for was this experience. Like, it wasn't because he was sick. There was no physical reason. There were no complications. So I went on a spiritual journey, and in that I decided I wanted to honor my baby somehow, some way. I was going to make a diamond out of his ashes. I was going to do something. And then I connected with Dana from college. We hadn't talked in like 25 years. Saw she had this beautiful style. And I was like, I have this idea for a painting. Could you do it? And it was going to be like this. And it turned out to be this 36 by 36 painting. And it's just
beautiful.
yes, it's this beautiful tribute to my baby boy, because that's how he is with us now. He's here, he's watching over us. And then I had the idea, once I got the painting, I had the idea for the business. So Joshua was my inspiration.
Joshua was your inspiration. That's amazing. And I'm glad that Dana was able to actualize your vision. It's incredible. And I'm wondering, is the title of your new memoir, Birth of an Entrepreneur, in any way related to that experience you just shared, or it was just because you left corporate America and became an entrepreneur?
No, it's definitely, I mean, my book title is got Joshua on the cover. So, and we start with how I lost the baby. That's the first post. And then it goes into my spiritual journey. And then it goes into, I came up for the idea for the business. I was still having my job, worked on the idea in the background. And so I lost Joshua on December 3rd, 2019. Had the idea for the business in November 2020. I worked on it for a year and a half. So this book is a compilation of all my emails that I had sent out every week. I would send an email out to my people, and it grew and grew and grew.
Wait, I'm going to cut in here right quick. I think I didn't get the whole title then. So it's Uniquely You, update number 52, The Birth of a Bright-Eyed Entrepreneur. Okay, I want to make sure for somebody who's not watching this video, if they're just hearing the audio on the podcast, and it'll be in the show notes as well. But okay, so that's the subtitle that I said. Gotcha.
Thank you. Yeah, you got it. It's close enough. We call it 52, we call it update, go whatever. So I would write emails every week about my progress, keep myself accountable. And what's really cool is I see my growth from being this, let's do this, to like, oh my God, what am I doing? To, to just like actually.
Which happens to all of us, all of us grinders, entrepreneurs. That absolutely happened. I was asking myself last week, why am I doing this again? What the heck? Does anybody even care? You do. You just go through those times, and it's usually related to a period of exhaustion. But yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I got you. I'm glad you're still doing it though, because it matters. What you do matters.
Thank you.
So I wrote the emails over the year. I still had the job. I was going through my spiritual like awakening-ish, doing my research, listening to my YouTube videos and taking classes and all that stuff. And then in September of 21, September of 21, some tragedies befell our town. And the whole idea of the business was about uplifting and creating a community, and there was a lot of heaviness. We were coming out of COVID and the stuff going on in the schools and these tragedies that we were dealing with in our family and around us. It just became too much. So my husband and I bought a house in our expensive little community based on my 6-figure salary. In October, we closed. And then 2 weeks later, I was like, babe, I'm going to have to quit.
May have to downsize. A lot of people, a lot happened around that time period for a lot of folks that, wow.
Yeah. So we bought the house, we settled in, I had some investment money, and I said, I promise you won't feel anything different. The business is going to be successful, all that entrepreneur, like dreamy stuff. And my last day of my job, not planned, was December 3rd.
Wow. Same
2021.
day.
So now December 3rd has become Joshua Day. It's something that we celebrate in the company.
The birth, new life, new experiences. Wow. I like that full circle. I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Before we go, You've got 3 companies, for non-publishing, the Thirsty Creative Group, and Uniquely You. Give us a real quick elevator pitch on each one of those, and then we'll tell people how they can connect with you to learn more.
Okay, well, I'm start with Phenom Publishing. Dana and I came together and we publish works that are inspired, stepping into their greatness, stuff like that you've written, like you're kind of like you're our people. And
Yes, I am.
you so are. And the thing that we offer is that we're very selective of the works that we take on. This is a new company, but we don't charge anybody, an author, upfront fees. So we take our fees and the royalties because we only take works that we believe are going to be successful.
Oh, wow.
So we do all of our investment and our time, and we estimate it, and then we take the royalties at the end, and then we flip the amount of royalties once we meet our costs.
Mhm.
Phenom Publishing. And on the other side, we have finduniquelyyou.com with the letter U, which is an online learning platform for content creators such as yourself who want to learn how to create a workshop. We're not self-paced workshops. We're live, interactive, small workshops so that you can really connect with your community and your audience. And again, we don't take any upfront fees on that. We train you human to human training, teach you how to turn your content into a workshop, and then give you the tools to connect with your audience and market it. And our whole mission is to invest our time, energy, and resources into those who are courageous enough to invest in themselves. So people that are doing the work and showing up and pushing through, even though they were like, why am I doing this? Right. And then Thirsty Creative Group is really just kind of like, it's still been around since 2010. It's my side hustle. So I do the graphic design, the brochures, the logos, the websites. I do all that kind of stuff.
And I saw your portfolio. You are very, very good at that. And I look at a lot of graphics and designs. I was impressed. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Oh, thank you for looking.
Okay. So how can listeners contact you, find you online, and learn more?
I really prefer to connect through LinkedIn because I'm building my network, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to grow each other's networks and be symbiotic. So I like LinkedIn a lot. I think it's Angela DiMarco, I believe, is my profile. Also go to finduniquelyyou.com and see what we're working on. If anybody's interested in becoming a content creator on our site and building a workshop and making some money with the beautiful knowledge that you have, go to become a U instructor at the top and see what we're all about and what we offer. Or if you have a manuscript and you are like, what do I do? What do I do with it? I need some like Phenom people to put this together. Submit an author inquiry at phenom-publishing.com.
And again, we'll have those links in the show notes. You are just an incredible woman, and talk about being a creative. I mean, that spans the whole spectrum right there. You can help. If somebody wants to level up with their entrepreneurship, you are leading by example. Angela DiMarco, thank you so much for joining Perpetual Motion today.
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
Yes,
You're
it has.
amazing. Thank you.